How often do we look at someone, see what they're doing, compare ourselves to them, and decide, I want to do that? Though it's not within our nature, though it's not who we are. In a life, very rarely do we have an opportunity to go for it. 99% of us play it safe in our life. We play within the game that we know we can win in, or we play within a game where we know we won't lose. That is sin. What? You are moving away from the truth and going more towards the ephemeral, the changing world, which is asat, false. Satyam param dhimahi. 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 Jai Gurudev. Okay. So we're discussing chapter 2, as you know. And after Arjun has gone through what he has been going through, Lord Krishna immediately jumps into what one could say the central teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. He jumps right into what we could call the Atma Tattva. He is describing who we really are, the qualities of Atman. And he begins with, immediately from the beginning, by saying, never has been born, never dies, never will not be, and continues to build from there. We have had a recap last week, so we won't go any further and continue from where we left off, which was verse 21, chapter 2. Mala, go ahead.
Veda vinashinam nityam yayenam ajam avyayam katham sapurusha partha kam ghatayati hantikam. Arjuna, the man who knows this soul to be imperishable, eternal, and free from birth and decay, how and whom will he cause to be killed? How and whom will he kill? Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grunhati naroparani tatha sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani sanyati navani dehi. As a man shedding worn-out garments takes other new ones, likewise the embodied soul, casting off worn-out bodies, enters into others that are new. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakaha, न चैनं क्लेदयन्त्यापः न शोषयति मारुतः. Weapons cannot cut it, nor can fire burn it. Water cannot wet it, nor can wind dry it. अच्छेद्योऽयमदाह्योऽयम् अक्लेद्यो शोष्य एव च नित्यः सर्वगतस्थाणुः अचलोऽयं सनातनः. For this soul is incapable of being cut or burnt by fire, nor can it be dissolved by water, and is undryable by air as well. This soul is eternal, omnipresent, immovable, constant, and everlasting. Avyaktoyamachintyoyam avikaryoyamuchyate tasmad evam viditvainam nanushochitum arhasi. This soul is unmanifest. It is incomprehensible, and it is spoken of as immutable. Therefore, knowing it as such, you should not grieve. अथ चैनं नित्यजातं नित्यं वा मन्यसे मृतं तथापि त्वं महाबाहो नैवं सोचितुम् अर्हसि. And Arjuna, if you should suppose this soul to be subject to constant birth and death, even then you should not grieve like this.
Let's pause here for a moment. So we've discussed up until this verse 25-26 of chapter 2 in many different ways, right? The last two sessions particularly, you remember we spoke about the space, the roominess, inside and outside, all of that, correct? You're very clear. I think that the last two sessions are worth going back again and again, or re-listening to the verses that Mala just chanted, because they succinctly remind ourselves that we are this eternal being, right? Having a human experience. But then look what Lord Krishna is doing now. It seems like in a way he's taking a step back, right? He was talking about Atman, and now he's taken a slight step back and he's saying, but even if you don't think that you are Atman, because look, this is the Lord himself. Haven't you seen how many times Guruji says, is this going over your head? He asks us many different ways. I try to make it as simple as I can, Gurudev will say, but then still, it goes over the head. So probably what Krishna is seeing is Arjun maybe is not so convinced that he is Atman, the true nature of Atma Tattva. So then the Lord takes a slight step back. Do you see? Otherwise he wouldn't be going in this direction. Well, even if you don't think that you are Atman, the immutable self, then even then common sense is you should still not grieve. Why not? That's where Lord Krishna is going to go probably in the next couple of verses. But just recognize this, that if Arjun had taken everything Bhagavan said, the last 6, 7, 8 verses, however many verses there were, actually it probably started around verse 11 or so till verse 26. He has been giving the knowledge of self. If Arjun had received it, that would have been the end of Bhagavad Gita, correct? So clearly he didn't, and Bhagwan saw it, and so Bhagwan then starts to go at it from all the different directions, including saying, look, anyway, if you don't believe it, there's no reason to grieve. And why not? And that's the next verse. Go ahead, Mala.
जातस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्युः ध्रुवं जन्म मृतस्य च तस्मात् अपरिहार्येति न त्वं सोचितुमर्हसि. For in that case, death is certain for the born and rebirth is inevitable for the dead. You should not, therefore, grieve over the inevitable.
You see? So why Krishna, don't worry about it if you don't understand, don't see yourself as Atman, don't worry about it. Anyway, they're dead. It's certain, it's common sense. Nobody is going to question whether or not they're going to die. Doesn't matter whether the body anyway is going to die or not. That's not a question. So he says very clearly, death is certain, but here's the second thing that's not maybe so clear. Maybe this is a thought that comes out of India, though I think it exists in some form or another in every tradition. This notion of something beyond the death of a body, right? That does exist, whether they describe it as a kingdom of heaven or some such thing, or a continuity of life as Lord Krishna is discussing. He makes a very clear statement. Death is certain for the born, and rebirth is inevitable for the dead. So perhaps this is the place where the notion of reincarnation, as we have understood it, gets introduced in this verse. Now, death is certain for what? For the body, right? Let's be clear. Death is certain for the body. And so what is it that takes rebirth? Because it's not the body. And you remember we already discussed about the Atman, that it's not like there's individual Atma, Rajshree Atma and Amit Atma and Mala Atma and Pramod Atma. Why not? Why not? Because the truth was already given by God. What was it? Why not? Why are there not individual truths? Because truth is what? Only one. Are you with me? Did you guys hear this last piece? We have this idea that Atma itself transmigrates from one to another body. But then that would mean there's 9 billion truths, assuming that's how many people are on the planet, and then how many other creatures and animals and plants and trees and rocks and stones and whatnot. Everything has the life force, consciousness in it. Just to what degree is it in expression that we understand? That's the only difference. So we are not talking about body. We know for certain body has death. But he just said rebirth is inevitable. He just made an emphatic statement. It is also certain, inevitable. So then we have to ask the question, what is it that takes rebirth? It's not the body. It's not the Atman. But let's do one thing, something we know. Maybe we should break down. Body consists of what? There's 3 bodies, isn't there? There's the physical body, gross body as we say, and then there is what? The subtle body, sukshma sharir, and then there is the causal body. Correct? Physical body we know about, a lot has been discovered and a lot is being discovered, but we know a lot about the physical body. It is this piece that dies, and it is this piece that is born. New body, just like he said in the prior verse, just like old worn out clothing is dropped and new clothing is worn, like that, old worn out bodies are dropped and a new body is taken. But what is it that does actually transmigrate? This is the question someone had perhaps on the very first or the second session that we had. And we spoke about Jivatma. Jiva, the subtle body. What is the subtle body consists of? Those are the, Manamaya Kosha, right? You know those Vijnanamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha. These 3 koshas or sheets is what the subtle body consists of. If you add all that up, you get what Gurudev has mentioned, the 19 different parts to the subtle body. What are the 19 different parts? 5 organs. I should say the power of the 5 organs. Are you hearing me? It's not the organs, the physical organs, but the power that the senses have. Sight, eyes, hearing, ears, sense of touch, taste. Correct? 5 sense organs, power is the 5 pieces of the subtle body. And then the 5 motor organs. And then the 5 pranas. Because pranamaya kosha is also part of the subtle body. Notice what happens when we do kriya, when we do meditations. What are we doing? We're affecting the pranic body. Prana level changes, it creates an impact in the manomaya kosha, our mind. So 5 sense organs, the power, 5 power of motor organs, 5 prana, that's 15, and then there is man, chitta, ahankara, right? Mind and buddhi. Mind, intellect, memory, and ego. What does that mean? Concretely speaking, for our purposes, it means our thoughts and our desires and our likes and our ideas and our dislikes, our beliefs, our assumptions. It is this that is consisting of the subtle body. It is this that transmigrates from one old clothing to another new clothing, a new body. Are you hearing me? This is why Gurudev will say, no, what happens? Life force goes up, we meditate, we are clearing out to some degree the subtle body. And subtle body is directly dependent on what we cannot get into, but I'm sure Lord Krishna will get into in chapter 3, karma. The do's and the don'ts and the rules and the regulations of karma determines the subtle body and how it moves from one body to another physical body. Clear? So this verse, it sounds similar to what we've heard before, but it's actually addressing something subtle. It's the first place it seems like we're getting introduced to the notion of reincarnation. And again, a reminder, that the subtle body this is the person I am, right? Atman is always the illuminator. It's always one. And it is when the Atma gets identified to those thoughts and those emotions and those desires and those wishes and likes and dislikes, that thing becomes Jivatma. It becomes as if it's a separate independent entity. You have to go back. Remember, go back to the first or the second session when we spoke about what is Sat and what is Asat. All those things that I just mentioned in the subtle body. Does it have a reference of time? Yes. It might be there now, but it may not be there later. It was not there before, but it is there now. This is what? Asat, false. Sat is what? Is. Existence is. What is? Isness. This piece we call Atman or Brahman or existence or truth for right now. Sat. So everything in our subtle body is Maya, Mithya, false. It has a dependency on something. It does not have an independent existence. That which is false does not have, we've discussed this before, so I'm just reminding you in the context of this verse, it does not have an independent existence. Are you with me? If you see, the example that is used is if you see a pot, a clay pot. The clay pot exists in name and form and function. But can it have an independent existence from clay? Can it? Yes or no? Shake your head. No. right? A necklace, it can exist independently in name, in form, and in function. I don't wear my necklace on my ear, I wear it around my neck. But it cannot have an independent existence from gold or silver or whatever it is. Correct? In this sense, it's ephemeral, it comes and it goes. Good? Let's continue.
अव्यक्तादीनि भूतानि व्यक्तमध्यानि भारत अव्यक्तनिधनान्येव तत्र का परिदेवना. Arjuna, before birth, beings are not manifest to our human senses. On death, they return to the unmanifest again. They are manifest only in the interim between birth and death. What occasion then for lamentation?
See, he exactly said what I had just gotten through saying. It exists for just like a dream. While you have the dream, it's real. You cannot say that a dream does not exist because you do experience it. You feel the sensations of a nightmare. The heart is beating, you perspire. But then, at the same time, when you wake up, you say, oh, it's not there. The same is true for body, the world. All of world appearance is exactly that, a projection, just like a dream. It is there and then it is not. Clear? Go.
Ascharyavat pashyati kaschidinam Ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyah Ascharyavat chainamanya shrunoti Shrutvaapinam vedana chaiva kaschit. Hardly anyone perceives the soul as marvelous. Scarce another likewise speaks thereof as marvelous, and scarce another hears of it as marvelous, while there are some who know it not even on hearing of it.
So I think this is where we left off with Gurudev's video, more or less, where he speaks about it's a wonder, so many speak of it, it's a wonder, so many might even hear about it, speak about it, but hardly a few know it. It's a rare person who knows. Though it's interesting, the way it's written here, it's hardly a few even speak about it, and hardly a few hear about it, and even lesser are those who know. Look, in some ways, this is a criteria. It's a rare person who comes to the path, who is interested in knowing something beyond what they see, touch, and feel. Isn't it? This we have been hearing from Gurudev over and over. Rare person. Who is that rare person? You know the qualifications of a student. You have heard, I'm sure, many, many times, the 4 pillars of knowledge and the 6th wealth. Correct? When you have these criteria, then those are those rare who speak and hear and share and speak of the glory of the self, Atman. You remember those 4 pillars and the 6th wealth? Yes? Good. Okay, keep going.
Tehi nityam avadhyoyam Tehi sarvasya bharata Tasmat sarvani bhutani Natvam sochitum harhasi. Arjuna, this soul dwelling in the bodies of all can never be slain. Therefore, you should not mourn for anyone.
It sounds like he's repeating. I'm sure there's a reason, because I don't think Lord Krishna repeats himself. There must be a reason, there must be some, perhaps logic, some way of establishing something that continues, but it's very important for us to hear again and again what is really being said. The soul, Atman, cannot be slain. It cannot be made wet. It cannot be burned. Nothing can happen to it. You recall, I kept talking about it the last time with this jar of water that I use to drink, right? You shatter the glass, that's the body. Did anything happen to the roominess in the glass if I shatter the glass? No. Out here, the vastness we call Brahman. The roominess outside of the jar we call Brahman. Consciousness. The vastness, I suppose, is a good translation. And the roominess within the jar we call Atman. The qualities are the same because it is the same. It is one. If you say same, it's as if there were two and I'm comparing them. That's not correct. It's one. Whether you keep the jar here or not, it's exactly that one roominess, consciousness. And in fact, there's a dependency on us seeing the jar. Dependency on what? The roominess. Remember I told you about the chair? The reason you see the chair in the room is because the roominess around the chair. That's how you see the chair. Are you with me? Are you remembering this? If not, go back and re-listen to it. You see? There's always two things. If you say the jar is, there's the jar and there's the isness. We don't see the isness, we just see the jar. And then we think that we are it. We get identified to what we are seeing because it is an object. The roominess is what? The subject. Are you still with me, or are we talking apples and oranges? Are you with me? This is, we are the rare ones who are at least talking about it. And with the grace of God, and when the divine decides so, we will live it or experience it. But what is important in Vedanta is to have a small breakthrough in understanding, because then that binds us deeper to the path and in our search and in our seeking. But more importantly, it binds us to a certain kind of freedom when we live and think and act and make choices. Do you understand? This isn't just about, oh, okay, I just want the ultimate truth. That's not what we're saying. If you have a certain breakthrough in understanding of who am I really, what am I really, what is life really, then something moves through in playfulness, more playfulness in life. You have intensity, you have passion, you have compassion, you have dispassion. All the pieces come together slowly, incrementally perhaps, in which we live with more juice, more vibrancy, more excitement, and more risk, more committed to life. Yes, so we see the glass, but the glass has a dependency on the roominess. For example, if I have a potato and I put it in boiling water and I put heat to it, does the potato have an independent existence of heat? No. It has a dependency on the water, which is boiling, which has a dependency on the pot that is heating up and boiling the water, which has a dependency on the fire. The fire is inherently hot. It has no dependency. It is an independent existence, the heat we're talking about. Keep the metaphor in the place that we're discussing. But the water, the potato, has a dependency on the fire. But we mistake the potato and the heat in the potato as if it's independent. But the heat will go, From the potato, it will also go from the water, it will also go from the pot, but as long as the fire is lit, the heat in the fire is. Are you with me? Is. Yes? Continue.
Vadharmamapi chavikshya na vikampitum harhasi dharmyadhiyuddha shreyonyat kshatriyasya na vidyate. Besides, considering your own duty too, you should not waver, for there is nothing more welcome for a man of the warrior class than a righteous war.
He's so smart, of course we know he's so smart, but now what is he doing? This is another sign that Arjun didn't buy into, don't worry, they're all dead and nobody's born and nobody's dead. He didn't buy into it. It's very clear. So what does Lord Krishna say? Besides, considering your own duty too, you should not waver. For there is nothing more welcome for a man of the warrior class than a righteous war. There's actually quite a bit to take away from here. Your own duty, meaning aligning with your own nature. When you do that, it also brings you to a certain state of fulfillment, freedom, a certain state of harmony internally. Because remember, the state of Arjun is, he's all wiggly and shaky and nothing is steady for him. Correct? So he's saying, when you align with your own nature, and the second thing is that's mentioned in that same verse is man of the warrior class. Warrior class and your own nature are two linked together. Do you recall that we have been discussing this again and again? Arjun is a warrior. He has been trained to go to battle, to kill. Warrior. Now, it's not a class as in because he was born into it. Understand something. Perhaps it's worth mentioning here that it was more of a type, a category of mindset. If you think of a thought leader, someone who, wants to go deep into ideas and philosophy and thought and discovery and research around what is this, what is life, they're not bothered about money. They're not bothered about Shakti and power and juice and all of that. They're more interested in digging deep into an idea. We can call this the Brahmin class in that sense. Do you understand what I'm saying? Am I clear? This mindset of a group of people who want to look inward into what is life, what is this about, how does this work, what are the stars and the moons and how are the planets, and they are looking into this, and this is what inspires them. The nature of such a person, when they are aligned in that place, they do the best. There's more internal harmony, more peace. They thrive. In a certain sense, there is freedom. And then there are those who work with Shakti, strength, valor, courage, power. It's a mindset in a person. Yes, it's true that most likely, probably, if both parents are like this and grandparents are like that, then there's a possibility or a probability that the child born into that mindset and those group of people and genetics, if you will, or karma, they are going to be more likely to be like that, but it's not necessarily the case. So one who is coming from strength and valor and courage and this, let's go for it and fight it out, this kind of person is the type we could call, quote, a warrior. And clearly, Arjun is this person. The mindset is like that. Are you clear? And then there's the third, whose focus is on wealth, building a business and making it bigger and making it more successful, and those kinds of qualities that are there. This is the consumer, the merchant class, so to speak, the professionals who is really focused in on material success. That is their focus, and they're inspired by it. Nothing right with it or nothing wrong with it. We're just discussing, for simplicity's sake, 4 types of mindset. And then there is the one who wants to serve, who wants to be of support rather than lead my own thing like the warriors or the king. I want my own space, governance, and rule the country and rule the world. That's the warrior class. Then opposite of that, in a certain way, is the servant, the one who has the mindset of being available in supportive roles. Maybe that could be a doctor, and depends on who and how, the social worker, and a devotee for that matter. Are you hearing this? And when you are in alignment with your nature, when you do what is in alignment with who you are within your nature, then you are also going to find freedom. You're also going to find a certain kind of inner harmony and peace and fulfillment. That is what he's saying. But if you look, he is saying this in response to what Arjun had brought up. It's not random. Correct? Krishna Bhagavan is not randomly stating this. Remember Arjun's arguments? It's better for me to be an ascetic and become a monk than to go to battle. He was talking about being a Brahmin, essentially, instead of remaining in his true nature as a warrior. And so Krishna Bhagavan is addressing these pieces of argument that Arjun had given. And he's saying, no. Look at what we do. Have you seen lots of parents, I have seen this very often. I don't know, Didi, could you please talk to my son or my daughter, or Gurudev, I don't know what to do, The first side is fine. He's a lawyer and a doctor and whatever, but this one wants to be an Indian chief. He's become a poet. Don't know what to do. He's an artist. And so they're nudging that child to go be something that's not naturally coming. I'm not telling you it's right. I'm not telling you it's wrong, that if your son wants to be an artist or doesn't, that's not it. But haven't you seen that many times where we feel that the child should go in one direction, and yourself that this child functions very differently from others? That's not their nature. But no, I want you to be a doctor. No, I want you to be an engineer. And all they're doing in the room under the blanket with a flashlight is drawing and making paintings or writing poetry. So that is what that verse is saying. Actually, it's saying a lot, and it's something very pragmatic, even from the perspective of daily life. How often do we look at someone, see what they're doing, compare ourselves to them, and decide, I want to do that? Though it's not within our nature, though it's not who we are, but we say, I want to do that. I tell you an example. When I first went to India, perhaps I already shared this story, very, very early on, I went to India, and Banu used to sing, Mohana used to sing. Like this, there were a few people who would sing. And every so often, I would be at some satsang with Guruji, but there was no Bhanu, there was no Mohana, they were not there. And then there was nobody to really sing with Guruji, And I remember one time going to his kutir and saying, Gurudev, I also wish I could sing like so-and-so and so-and-so. And his response immediately was, Dekhe mat mango. By looking and seeing what others have, you don't ask for what you want. You ask for what you want because you want it, because it's within your calling. 90% of our life, we are running after something not because it's what we truly want. If we really ask ourselves, we are doing it because we're comparing ourselves to somebody else whose nature is to do exactly what they're doing, and your nature is perhaps to do exactly what you are doing. But this is what the mind does. It keeps looking around and saying, I should also do that. I should also do that. The other day I was teaching a silence course online, and at the end someone shared, they sent a chat saying, I hadn't realized it, because when they first joined Art of Living, I was their teacher, and somehow I was part of their journey and influenced their direction. And that person wrote saying, Didi, I didn't realize it, but I teach advanced courses like you, I have your style of teaching. And I wrote back saying, the best style of teaching would be who you are, not who I am. It's in that sense I'm saying, when you are in your nature, what you serve, what you do, how you do, what you want for that matter, is often not related to alignment within our true nature. It's aligned because someone else is doing it, or someone else we think is better at it, and we should be able to do that. So that's a really a different turn on where Lord Krishna is going with Arjun, to see if that somehow inspires him to say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I've been prepared to fight, and I'm the best warrior there is. You know, he's the best archer in the world, seemingly, leaving aside Eklavya. So you would think he would maybe say, okay, I'm ready to go. But that doesn't happen, of course. That's why then the Gita continues. Yeah? So continue.
यदृच्छया चोपपन्नं स्वर्गद्वारम् अपावृतं सुखिनः क्षत्रियाः पार्थ लभन्ते युद्धमीदृशम्. Arjuna, happy are the Kshatriyas who get such an unsolicited opportunity for war, which is an open gateway to heaven.
So again, if you don't understand where Lord Krishna is coming from, and you don't know who he is, and you just start to read this, imagine whatever many thousand years, 800 years ago, when this book traveled to the West and people started to read it, they would have been like, oh my God, what kind of a divine mentor or guide is this Krishna? Because he's just telling him, fight, go to war, because it'll bring you heaven, it's good for you. Sounds quite out there, but that's not what he's saying. Looking at the whole context, remember? Look at the beauty of this thing. Arjuna, happy are the Kshatriyas, the warriors, who get such an unsolicited opportunity for war. In the previous statement, he said a righteous war. Remember, they are not the one who has said we have to go to war, it's the cousins. The Kauravas have called the war. And within our nature, who we are, every so often we get an opportunity to be at our peak in who we are, how we are, our performance, peak experience within our nature. Are you following what I'm saying? That's very rare. Arjun has fought a lot of battles. He's gone to war many times, but such a war. As a warrior, where do you want to show up? Not where you know you're going to win, but where you don't know, where you will be challenged. Leave aside war for a moment. If you're an athlete, when you play a game of any sort, if you play with the kid, it's just play. You're not really at your level best in playing whatever game you're playing. You're not challenged. Your skill, your talent, your gift, your potential does not get to shine when you play with someone you know you can win against. Correct? Similarly, when you're at work, when you're doing anything in life, when you come into a situation where you have to step up your game, and that opportunity comes, we generally want to run away from it. Avoid. Somehow we convince ourselves, just like Arjuna was doing in the beginning, justify to avoid, to run. But he's saying, Lord Krishna is saying, Arjuna, are you kidding me? Dude, look at this amazing opportunity you have been given as a warrior, as a Kshatriya, someone who has been trained for war and battle. Look at what's in front of you. It's a righteous war. You are not the one instigating war or battle or conflict, but here you are where you do not know who will win, where you will have to step up your game. And if you do that, if you come from that place of internal challenge, going for it, giving your 100%, you reach heaven. It's not heaven up in the sky somewhere. That is not Krishna's language. Heaven means what? Internally, somewhere you will find peace and happiness and joy and a certain sense of accomplishment and achievement. Why is this being said? Because that's what Arjun was speaking about in chapter 1. What's the point of achieving this or that? Why would I want to fight? I don't know what I'll get. I don't know who's going to win. I don't know who's not going to win. Remember all of those conversations that Arjun was having. So can you see how this makes sense in terms of saying, in a life, very rarely do we have an opportunity to go for it. 99% of us play it safe in our life. We play within the game that we know we can win in, or we play within a game where we know we won't lose. Do you play in life? This is a very real question. Are you playing in life to win, or are you playing in life to make sure you don't lose? How many say they are the same thing? Can you raise your hand? Wave. How many say it's the same thing? How many say it's not the same thing? I just see one hand up. It is not the same thing. Do you play in your life whatever you are playing? At home, at the office, in your seva, with your partnerships, with your relationships, with your parenting. Do you play to win in life? Or do you play to make sure you don't lose? They're two different sets of mindset. And opportunities come our way. We always play it safe. We play it within the box to make sure that somehow I don't look like I failed. And I also want to make sure somehow that I don't lose anything. This is a very different game of life. And it's something to examine for yourselves between now and next week. Okay, how do I play in my life? Do I choose and make decisions based on going for it, or do I choose and make decisions so that everything is safe? Did I say be reckless, careless, non-thinking? I'm not saying any of those things. If your child comes and says, Mom, in PE today, they exposed us to gymnastics and I loved it and I really want to do gymnastics. For some people, the response will be, well, that's great. What is it going to take? And let's see. And let's get you ready and let's get you set up. And somebody else's response, parents' response might be, oh, honey, I don't know. We have to look into this. We have to be careful. You could get hurt. You could get injured. Is there something else that you could do? Do you see the difference between the two? One is going for it and the other is not. Both can be practical, do due diligence, be careful, take caution, but one will make decisions based on one thing and another based on another thing. And Lord Krishna is saying to Arjuna, you will not get this opportunity. It's the biggest, the height of all opportunities. Go for it. And if you do, when you're 100%, when you've gone for it, then you find fulfillment of another sort. Actually, when you have gone 100% into it, what happens? The subtle body, the mind, the chatter, the vacillation back and forth, it's good, it's bad, I shouldn't, why didn't I didn't, all of that drops off. Then the mind is fully in the present moment. And we have had many different ways of discussing when the mind is fully present, then everything is a flow through. Then you are not the doer at that moment. And one of the qualities that Lord Krishna described about Atman is what? It is a non-doer. It does not act. It does not do. You recall that? Yeah? Are you still listening? Okay, one more.
Atat chaitvam imam dharmyam sangramam na karishyasi tataswadharmam kirtincha hitva papamavapsyasi. Now, if you refuse to fight this righteous war, then shirking your duty and losing your reputation, you will incur sin.
This is exactly what I was saying, no, just moments ago. When we step away from what we know we need to do, what we want to do, what we're prepared to do, what we feel like I have it in me to do, but because of some fear, because of some me and mine, because of some delusion, because of some attachment, because of some fear of loss, that's what we've been discussing. Loss and delusion. Delusion means what? You lose track of your truth, who you really are. When we do that, then this is exactly what happens, what you see Lord saying. If you refuse to fight this righteous war, then shirking your duty and losing your reputation, you will incur sin. Sin, understand it from the perspective of problems, more stress if you want, more vasanas, grooves, impressions, habits. That is what we mean by sin. No? Also remember, this is a translation, because it doesn't, you don't hear in India this sense of sin in the way that we understand it in the West. Consequence that create us getting more identified, more lost in delusion. That is what is meant by sin here. More grief comes, more loss comes, and this vicious cycle that we have been discussing continues. And really, the truth is to ask ourselves in this moment, like, how many times do opportunities come and I justify and I tell stories to myself and I excuse and so on and so forth, and step away from what I know is the correct and the best thing to do. Dharma, righteous war. What is the correct thing to do? What is the best thing to do? How many times have we stepped away from that? And the consequence of that is what? Everything goes down, no? Regret and guilt and blame, and then we get angry, which then leads to delusion, which then leads to more possessiveness, and this sense of me and mine grows. We just build more karmas. The subtle body gets thicker. The groove becomes like the Grand Canyon. Instead of a small little thin line, it slowly starts to get bigger and bigger. We go into resistance. We are not there yet, but at some level, Lord Krishna already spoke about this when he spoke about hot and cold, pain and pleasure. We go into these two pairs of opposites. That is sin. What? You are moving away from the truth and going more towards the ephemeral, the changing world, which is asat, false. Clear? Really, it's a big thing, these two verses. And again, I remind you, Lord Krishna is exactly addressing what Arjuna had been speaking about. Remember, he spoke about what will others say or not say. I'd rather do this and not that. And that's exactly what the Lord is saying. If you refuse to fight, you will lose your reputation. He's poking that ego again, because the highest knowledge didn't work. So then he's come back to manovignan, the science and the understanding and the awareness of mind, to see if that can nudge him forward. Yeah? It's amazing. No, this is amazing. I'm like, this is what Gurudev does with us. No, he gives us the highest knowledge, and then we all have that blank look on our face. And so then he comes back again with, okay, let me help you with dealing with the mind, and okay, and why not you just, it's okay, relax. Not that that small piece of knowledge, relax, is the highest piece of knowledge on one level, but he then takes a pause. You know? One more.
अकीर्तिं चापि भूतानि कथयिष्यन्ति ते व्ययाम् सम्भावितस्य च कीर्तिः मरणादिति रिच्यते. Nay, people will also pour undying infamy on you, and infamy brought on a man enjoying popular esteem is worse than death.
If this isn't poking an ego, I don't know what is. But imagine, this is such a huge statement. I have a friend, this happens. I mean, we all go through this at some level or another. When you have achieved such a high status, and life does what it does, it goes up and down, up and down. If you have nothing by your standard and by other people's standards, remember what we spoke about in chapter 1. What will others say? Me is mine, and what's mine is me. It's more important that what are mine, who I consider mine, praise me than just strangers. Remember that whole conversation, correct? So here we are. Arjun has this reputation. The height of reputation in terms of being a warrior and a noble prince and so on. And he's saying, if you don't do this, imagine what everybody in the world is going to think of you. When you go from that place and then in the ego you drop down, for sure it's worse than death, because you just walk around all covered and artificially boost your body up and feel like you're somebody, but inside there's this feeling of crumbling. I started to tell you, I have this friend in the film industry, all kinds of awards, at the peak in his life, maybe 5-6 years ago. And for the last 5 years, maybe 7 years, a little bit longer perhaps, nothing is working. And he keeps going down, 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 down. And he keeps saying, this is worse than death. You have no idea what it's like. And he'll keep making up stories. Raj, maybe you need less than I do. Maybe that's why you can be. This is so difficult. It's very hard for an ego who has attained so much to then, by your own doing, drop down. You constantly have to make stories and excuses and inflate yourself and show that everything is okay. That's what he's saying. This really tells you that what we had initially thought when we were discussing that, look how much ego is here as Arjun is talking. It seems altruistic and it seems like he's thinking big and wide, but really it's self-preservation, small mind preservation. Not that it's wrong or anything. If you think about his situation, standing in front of his own kin and kingdom and friends and uncle and so on, his teacher, the ego is not going to want to face up to that. So Lord Krishna is again striking back to the same place where Arjun had started, because one more time, all those verses about Atma Tattva, right? Atma Tattva has not really registered for Arjuna. And it's natural. We have been hearing it for how many years? How much does it really register for us also? Not that we are exactly Arjuna or not, but the journey is the same. We are struggling internally, no? Okay. Let's do one more.
Maya dranaduparatam mansyante tvam maharathaha yesham chatvam bahumataha bhutva yasyasi laghavam. And the warrior chiefs who thought highly of you will now despise you, thinking that it was fear which drove you away from battle.
Strong word. But again, he's throwing other people's opinion as a way to inspire him to move forward. See, initially they'll think you're great. That's what Lord Krishna had said in the beginning, if you remember. Now he's saying, if you don't do it, they're going to despise you. They're going to talk ill of you. They're going to say you were a coward and you ran away and this is who you are. And imagine that's not going to be very good for you and you won't like it. And That's, you see, it's so amazing because he's trying. Lord Krishna is coming at it from every direction to get Arjun to be ready, to be willing to say, I will fight and do what I must do. Is Krishna Bhagavan invested in the war? Yes or no? Is he trying to convince Arjun to fight? Yes or no? Don't sit there like what I told you. Is he? How many say no? How many say no? No, he's not. Lord Krishna is not speaking to Arjun about the war. He's speaking to Arjun about Arjun. He's not attached to Arjun, you should fight or you should not fight. It's just, Arjun, you are in this dilemma. Here is what is. Here is what is. That's it. Krishna Bhagavan could care less about the war in that sense. He's not attached to it. He has nothing, no pebble of investment towards there should be a fight and you should go to war. Nothing. Arjun has become the instrument for something that Arjun needs, and the rest of humanity, the rest of us, Arjun, need. And Lord is just giving the wisdom, pointing the finger to the highest. That is it. Don't mistake to think that, oh, Bhagwan is trying to convince him and maneuver him. No. God has no doership, no action, no direction that he's trying to go to. Are you clear? This piece is very important. Yes? Okay. We will stop here. Let me just see if I see any questions. I understand we don't have doership, but can you speak more about God has no doership, please? Actually, we have doership. God has no doership. We all think we do. It's natural to think that because we don't see, touch, feel Atman. We are so conditioned to thinking that what we think, feel, want, desire is who we are. We have become identified as a person to our subtle body. The mano kosha, mind sheet. And we think we are that. And actually the whole of the Gita is slowly, step by step, perhaps giving us a breakthrough in recognizing I am not just my thoughts. Perhaps for right now that is the second step, or my emotions or my desires. There's more to me. Perhaps that is the first step. No? But one step at a time, we will get into all of this. What's the difference between being caring and getting attached? When you care and you get invested in the results and you get frustrated that they don't do what you ask or what you want, that's called attachment. Caring is just pointing a finger and suggesting it and then moving on. But attachment is, I told you and you didn't do, and it looks like it's care, and intense care. I speak for myself personally, Certain moments, what I thought was caring and supportive was me being attached, perhaps attached to the person or the result or the situation. Attached to wanting something to go in a certain direction. It's nothing but kama, desire, for a specific result. You see? So to care is to point a finger towards what you consider greater, higher good, perhaps for that person, and then being at peace whether they do it or not. Isn't that clear? That's very clear. Is attachment more about ourselves, whereas caring is about the other person? Well, I just explained, but yes, the answer is Attachment is more about what I need and what I want and what's good for me, and I should be heard and do what I say and don't do what I say, and all of those kinds of things, all in the guise of caring. But then you start to realize, oh, okay, number one, I'm only hurting myself. Number two, there's a bigger, higher, greater power guiding their journey to what is best for them. And if I'm going to be a nimit, an instrument to being a pointer, then I just point and then I'll close my hand back down and keep it available to point again somewhere else. See? Eyes closed. Take a breath in. Let it go. And just have a sense. All that has been given is a gift. Letting go of trying to fix and understand and conceptualize and achieve and nothing to do. Just receive it like a seed. It will sprout when the divine deems it ready to be sprouted. Until then, we keep our vessel open, upright. Satyam param dhimahi. Satyam param dhimahi. Satyam param dhimahi. Just let go of the questions. Doesn't matter if you have an answer or not. Let go of the effort, if you can. For a few moments, have this sense, okay, it doesn't matter. I let things be as it is. I don't need to change my nature. I don't need to figure anything out. I don't need to take more risk or less risk. There's a bigger, greater, higher power moving everything in life. A blade of grass does not grow without His will. We do not blink our eyes without His choice. With this in your awareness, rest tonight. That Thy will be done. Wherever you take me, I will follow. Have this sense. Take a long breath in. And let it go. Jai Gurudev. God bless everyone.